Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the Metis Tech Show. Today we bring on members of the Tiger team to talk about advanced maintenance tool vital signs. But first, here's the Metis Minute. Bryn?
Thanks, Paul. Today's Metis Minute is about inverters. The inverter circuit is responsible for creating a simulated three-phase AC current to drive the compressor. First, the incoming line voltage passes through the noise filter board to clean up harmonics. Next, the AC voltage passes through a diode stack to convert the AC voltage to a DC voltage by cutting off the bottom side of the sine wave. Next, the smoothing circuit, comprised of reactors and capacitors, clean up the DC voltage and fill in the valleys on the waveform, creating a steady, stable DC voltage. Finally, the DC voltage enters the inverter circuit, which consists of 6 IGBTs configured in an H-bridge, where the load, the compressor, is in the middle of the bridge. The IGBTs pulse to feed each leg of the compressor. The actual voltage applied to the compressor is variable. In order to verify proper function of the inverter, we want to measure balanced AC voltage across each of the 3 wires going to the compressor. You'll want to measure U to V, V to W, and U to W, and make sure that the voltage is balanced within 10% of each other. Thanks for listening, and let's start the show.
The Metis Tech Show.
Welcome to the Metis Tech Show, a show for HVAC professionals by HVAC professionals.
I like how you guys bounce back and forth between heat pump talk and food talk.
The Metis Tech Show.
Mitsubishi.
All right, so Brandon, you mentioned you like to cook. What are some of your specialties?
Well, first time, long time listener, first time caller, big fan. Over the years, my wife has become gluten free, so by proxy, I've kind of become gluten free. So one of the things I've always liked to cook is waffles, and so to kind of come up with a rock solid gluten free waffle recipe, I've been kind of fighting that over the few years, and I'm on the verge of perfection. I don't like to say perfect because that's unattainable, but perfecting is more of a process. So,
Do you remember the phrase Sasquatch riding a unicorn?
Yes,
I think that's how likely that is.
It's they're fantastic. So yeah, I'm a big fan of my gluten-free waffles, and I get them requested on. Even my kids love them. So it's a buckwheat 50-50 buckwheat mix with a 1-to-1 rice flour, and then I mix with bananas and apples and the spices are nutmeg, cardamom, and cinnamon. So yeah. Oh, and vanilla extract too. I throw that in there. So yeah, I'm a big fan. Yeah.
Cool.
It sounds delicious.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
No,
It sounds like I'd try it because I'm a good sport, but I don't know how I feel about
Listen,
buckwheat
I was
and
trying
rice.
to be polite.
Well, see, buckwheat is its closest relative is rhubarb. So yeah.
Okay.
And listening
Interesting.
to this podcast, I'm pretty sure that is the first time gluten free has been mentioned.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're big bread eaters.
Yeah,
Well, I like
They're breadivores.
Yeah, well, that's one of the reasons I travel. It's not to fix things; it's to actually get things I don't get to eat at home.
Yeah,
Exactly. No, my son has celiac, so we had to learn about gluten free as well. And I do.
We'll
I've
send
got
him
some
over. I'll make him
pancakes.
some waffles.
Yeah, I'd love to try those. I haven't used buckwheat yet. I've been using almond flour and just like regular sorghum, I think is how you pronounce it, to try to make pancakes.
Yeah. Well, I get. I wouldn't say criticized, but I've been. I do carry my own maple syrup with me, oftentimes traveling.
Really?
Especially being in the Midwest, quasi South. People eat the Aunt Jemima garbage. And
Oh
it's,
no! We talked
can't,
about
just- I
that.
can't, I just-
It aggravates me, like the log cabin. So they officially changed the name of high fructose corn syrup to corn syrup. It's the same exact thing.
right.
And now log cabin, you go to a diner, and I always ask for a side of the real maple syrup, and they'll give it to you. But the squeeze bottle of log cabin is there, and it's big yellow letters across the front. No high fructose corn syrup. You look in the ingredients. First ingredient, corn syrup. That's just fraud.
It's not high.
Yeah. That's, Sean, you cook a little bit too, right?
A little bit, yeah. We just got one of those Weber griddles, and I'll have the family come over on the weekends. Son and daughter come over. They just moved out recently, so it's nice to see them. So we have a family gathering in the morning, and bacon is always the first thing down.
No.
It's so good. Trying to get it seasoned right at first was challenging. They say it's preseason, but I had stuff sticking for a while, so you had to do that. High temperature oil,
Yeah.
and then like let it coat, start to smoke, and then cool down, start again. That was challenging, but now that it's got some seasoning on it,
Yeah.
steaks, bacon, burgers, vegetables,
Gluten-free pancakes.
gluten-free pancakes. Yeah,
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm the only one that eats them, and my son.
Yeah.
right. But everyone else they have to go on afterwards, so my son doesn't get.
Oh yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
True.
See, I season mine after every cook, and the best thing is breakfast because I can put the hash browns on one side, the bacon over here. I can do the eggs when it's the closest they come to having everything ready at the same time because it never happens.
Like
for
short
me.
order cook.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Actually, one of our listeners actually sent us a text on that. You sound like a short order cook. Yeah. In fact,
Or I'd say more a short temper cook.
yeah, that's true. In fact, this Saturday, I got my brother-in-law's been bugging me all winter to come over for the pepper steak and cheese subs, and I'll throw those on there, and now I have to make 6 of them. So
Sounds good.
it's delicious. It's really good. It's the key is 2 different kinds of cheeses. So it's not a Philly cheesesteak. It's a pepper steak and cheese. You got the peppers and the onions, you're sauteing them. You got the shaved steak, you throw that on there and heat it all up. And then you got to mix in some Cooper Sharp cheese. Mix it in there, right in there with everything. And then I separate it and put it in these little rows, the size of the sub roll. So if I'm cooking for the 4 of us, there'll be the 4 things there. Then I open up the sub rolls and lay them on top. Get the giant spatula underneath there, put them together, and then I wrap them in butcher paper and then cut them in half and put them in a paper bag. Because if you go and pick up pepper steak and cheese subs, that 10, 15-minute drive home, they pick up so much flavor. So I don't let anybody eat right away. You got to wait 10 minutes.
Where do you get the meat? I'm taking you don't use sizzling, right?
No. Yeah, they still have that?
I don't know. Actually,
No.
I dated myself there, didn't I?
Yeah. No, I actually go to a butcher and I'll have him shave like something like, whatever he's got on there.
So butcher grade.
Yes.
That sounds good.
Yeah, and shaved it nice and thin.
When am I coming over?
Yeah, next time you're in Boston, let me know.
I don't think I've been there yet, actually.
Really?
Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah. For you, it is, being from the West Coast, Not
a
just the
little bit.
West Coast. You're like Oregon. It's like,
Yeah.
even
no,
Lewis and Clark had a tough time
doesn't
there.
get much further west.
It's Oregon Trail. It's actually his family story. It's based off of that.
Yep.
Yeah, the game.
Still lots of suffering.
We're just getting started. Suffering hasn't started. Just wait.
Thanks for the warning.
Yeah.
Well, he's from New York. You all think he's a West Coaster, hippie toad guy. Yeah, he's a New York. He was born in New York City.
Wow. Get out. Really?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you couldn't tell. But,
You can't tell from my attitude.
I hardly hear you swear. You didn't flip me off once.
No, the day's young.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, welcome everybody to the Metis Tech Show. My name is Paul Shavs. Bryn Raptor's with me. Bryn, say hi.
Hi.
And we have 2, I'm going to say, very, very special guests. We have Sean Taus and Brandon Russell. And this is not the first time. Sean, you've been on before, not with us, but we had a couple of people. A couple of years ago you were on. But you guys are part of our Tiger team. So let's do this. Sean, we'll start with you. Tell us what you do for the Tiger team. Brandon, you tell us what you do for the Tiger team, and whichever one of you decides, tell us exactly, first of all, I used to know this, I have it written down somewhere, what Tiger stands for, and what does the Tiger team do in general.
We'll be right back. Hey, listeners, if you like the Metis Tech Show, you should check out our YouTube channel called the Metis Training Network. That's METUS Training Network. Head on over to the Metis Training Network for tons of videos and programming made for HVAC professionals just like you. We've got technical training tips, HVAC program updates, and episodes of our new HVAC talk show called The Comfort Zone. Of course, you also get to catch up on more episodes of the Metis Tech Show as well. Head on over to YouTube and subscribe to the Metis Training Network today. Now, back to the Metis Tech Show.
Sean?
That's a loaded question. There's primarily, I think what I enjoy most and what I try to do the most and have the most passion for is just helping people get unstuck in their troubleshooting process. They'll call me, they'll ask questions like, why is something doing this? And I'm like, well, have you thought about like looking at it this way? And for a lot of people, they're like, oh, and then they'll hang up, never hear back. I'm like, hey, whatever happened with that? Oh man, that was great. It got awesome. I'm glad you said that.
No.
But they wind up fixing it themselves and just going the rest of the way. Other things that we do or take, quality issues, and we'll, if they are related to something the QA is dealing with, we'll help them be the interface between, the factory and the site visit, contractor, and our service team. Those are some of the things we do, but most of what I get the enjoyment out of is just like I said, helping people get unstuck.
Awesome.
As long as they've got a case number, I will help them.
All right.
Now, for those of you that have watched a couple of episodes, before we go to Brandon, just because we have Sean, when we did that podcast on why compressors fail, we essentially verbatim took the video that Sean so graciously made covering that particular topic. And it was an education for myself about the actual internal components and what was going on inside there. So he gets the credit for that podcast. Everything we said, we just stole from him.
I told him shamelessly plagiarized his video.
So it takes a village, right? Like that was help from Brandon. Faith was amazing.
She's awesome.
On that.
Yeah, she's great.
And then also Rick and Bubba. We all kind of put the structure together. I just got thrown in front of the camera, unfortunately for everyone. But yeah, it worked out better than I thought. I was outside my comfort zone.
Yeah, that's okay.
When you have people to interface, you get that feedback loop. But when you're staring at the camera, it's a whole different. It's like leaving that well, now I'm dating myself again, but when answering machines came out and you had to leave a message, right? And it's like you're trying to talk to a machine, and it's completely separate from what you're used to.
Yeah, there's a disconnect.
Exactly.
You get a little bit lost in everything because you don't know how it's being received.
And Sean, how long have you been with Mitsubishi?
Going on 14 years in the end of July will be 14 years.
Yeah, and your home is on the West Coast?
Yes.
Portland.
Just outside of Portland.
Portland,
Yes.
Oregon.
Gresham.
Very specific about that.
Yes, outside of Portland, Oregon, because there's more than one Portland. I
Yes.
found out.
Oregon. Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Brandon,
Yes, sir.
tell us about you.
Oh gosh.
I feel like this is like the dating game or something.
Yeah.
It's not. It's,
Well, yeah, I've been, depending on who you ask, my tenure at Mitsubishi started in 2010, and I was an ASM out of our Northern Kentucky office, colloquially known as the Cincinnati Training Center. That's not in the state of Ohio. That's another gripe. But no, I started there, and I was ASM for a few years, and then was doing a lot of additional work and realized that I'd rather do that. So I kind of went on my own for a little bit, and I was more of a hired gun for Tony, and that was more or less the impetus for the Tiger team. So I was kind of a smoke jumper, if you will. I say smoke jumper, but I was more there to sift through the ashes and find the black box. I think it's probably more than
so an arson investigator.
it was more of that. Yeah. Figuratively speaking, I was never on any of those literally, but yeah. But yeah, so that kind of and Tony came to me and asked me if I'd come back if that was under that idea, and it was a great idea. I came back, and ever since then I've been in this role. So
Awesome.
You talked about Tony Hayes, who's our old boss, used to be in charge of the service team, and
yes,
at one point
Tony
training
Hayes,
was under service, and and Tony retired, so he's
we miss him greatly.
Oh, he's a great guy.
Wonderful.
He's a wonderful guy.
Still talk to him every now and then just to make sure he's still up and at him. So yeah, but similar to what Sean does, we wear a few different hats. I too liaise with our product in mostly North America, and I've done some work in Latin America, and then just do a lot of detailed problem solving. I also work with product planning to help set up field trials. We just set up some testing up in North Central New Hampshire on some new equipment. So So yeah, a lot of different aspects of what we do. So to capture a lot of data that's outside of what we're talking about today, outside of maintenance tools. So some things we'll talk with maintenance tool is when do you need to get off the pickle bucket and go see what's going on?
Yeah,
So,
that's it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a very good. That's very accurate, actually.
Yeah.
So okay,
I'm
so
dating myself on that too.
Yeah.
The food reference. Yeah.
so you're the Tiger team. So and Bubba has told me this like once a year. He tells me, and I just have short-term memory problems. At least I think that's what it is. But what does Tiger stand for?
Okay. It's Technical Investigation Group Engaged in Results.
Okay.
And my understanding, I know it's a mouthful. My understanding was Tony really wanted to use Tiger Team, and he just sat with that for as long as he could to ensure that he could find an acronym that would fit that. So I think it was
works.
I want a Tiger Team, and this is I'm going to work with this. I wanted to be the A Team, but because we had four of us, we've got Sean, who's clearly Murdoch. And then we got Bubba, who's B.A. Baracus.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry, Bubba's Hannibal.
Yes.
And then Rick is B.A. Baracus, and then of course I'm Face.
Well, which one of you guys pities the fool? 'Cause I can't remember the name.
we all pity the fool, but I will say that the main reason I wanted to be the A team is because we're often charged for the crime we didn't commit. So it's so that's the main reason. I wanted to be it.
So I think I consider you guys tier 4, maybe 5. So let me run through this. So if there's a technical question, there's an 800 number that a contractor can call, and it goes to our customer care people. I affectionately refer to them as Care Bears.
Okay.
All right. So the way I like to say it is these are not people with an HVAC background. They got like a customer service background, and they're going to help. And everybody calls the same 800 number. Right? And then if it's a technical question, a technician calling in, is stuck on a job someplace, it goes to tier 2, our technical support advisors. These are HVAC guys. They worked in the field, they worked in a truck, they come to work for us, they get trained, they answer the phones, they help people and do a good job doing that. We've also got our DSGs, our Diamond Service Group. They're on the distributor level. They help contractors as well, fix things and figure out what's going on if they didn't quite install it right or something's happening that's unusual. They get there. But you guys, I refer to as the SEAL Team 6 of the troubleshooting. It's if this is basically it's something strange, it's something we can't quite figure it out. It's not making sense. You guys come in. I saw you roll your eyes when I said SEAL Team 6.
You'd be
Nobody
lucky to
died.
get 6 sit-ups out of me, so I've been called special. That's probably more fitting. Just saying.
Okay. All right. Oh, I've known you for quite a while, so I can see that.
Thank you for your support.
Yeah. So no, I mean, but you're the big guns. If you guys go on a job site, it's pretty much we've had already some really smart people out there that couldn't figure it out, and you guys are a whole different level of that. So
yeah, I think this ain't that. I don't like to think of it as levels in the sense of our aptitude, but we're allocated a lot more time and resources, and we have within our job description we can contact the factory directly. We have a lot of other things at our disposal that maybe other people don't have. So the way in which we interact with those groups that you mentioned is critical to our success as well. So it's not just that everything hitherto our involvement has been a fail. It's we take all of that information that we've gathered, and it's invaluable. So the more we can get, more collaboration we can get from those other entities going into it, we all have a much greater opportunity for success. Finding something.
Good explanation. All right, so we did an episode, Brent, how long ago was that? Maybe a year?
I don't even know if I had started yet when you guys did that one. It might have been like right when I started. So about almost 2 years ago now.
So we did one and we called it Maintenance Tool Vital Signs, and this was just, I forget who was on it, but whoever was on it, it was their opinion of what they look for, like their most important maintenance tool data that they look at. So let's stick, and you mentioned, Brandon, you got a lot of resources, a lot of different, you guys use different tools and things. I mean, we're not going out there with O-scopes.
Right,
you guys might be, who knows, but
we do.
But when you have maintenance tool, let's stick with maintenance tool. What are some of the things that you're looking at right off the bat? Like, what are the first vital signs? And they may be the same as what the guys talked about. So,
well, John, you want to start with this?
Yeah, I'll warm up. I mean, you're probably going to say something a lot more complicated.
No. I mean, I'm loquacious, but I don't know that I'm going to say anything better.
I think oftentimes the simplest thing to look at is saturation. So if the system's been off for a while, let's just start with something simple, saturation.
Yeah.
You know, if your temperature or if your pressures are higher than your temperatures, you know, then there's probably something wrong.
Sure.
Did you have a bunch of nitrogen in it, right? You know, just start with the simple thing. Like just, you know, obviously the system's got to be off and stable. You can't just make that judgment after turning it off. But if it's been on and you're about to do a startup for the first time, why not just look at that?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good
Right?
point.
You know, if you've got a 500 PSI and it's 70 degrees outside in the system and it hasn't run yet, and we have. So there were guys, the system would start up, a few seconds later, the compressor would overcurrent.
Yeah.
And they fought it for quite a while, and we got brought in, and I'm like, why is your pressure at 375 PSI and it's, you know, 50 degrees outside? And I said, do you? And it turned out there were some valves that were left shut during installation, you know, and that's all it was. So the point is just keep it simple, right? And also if it's running and you're in cooling and you're seeing a TE, that's your saturation equivalent of your low pressure, right? In the compressor of 32 degrees, and you see TH2s, your indoor units, that's your liquid pipe, into 20s, that's not possible.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
So just keep
It's
it.
a negative approach.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That'd be
So,
great. but
Again,
it's not going to
a
happen.
symptom of non-condensables in the system.
Right.
So those are some of the things I look for. All the other things that have been talked about, I'm not going to rehash. And then to me, that's invaluable. To just start simple.
Yeah, and I think that is something that when somebody first looks at maintenance tool, they can get overwhelmed by the amount of data that is shown. But at the end of the day, we're not reinventing the refrigerant circuit. Refrigerant is refrigerant; it's going to flow the same way. And
Physics
so,
is physics.
Yeah, you got to pay attention to that stuff. You
and
can't
that's-
forget it.
That's part of the battle when guys come to class. They're so intimidated. They think there's something different. So I haven't taught in a couple of years, but when I did teach, I would say, look, we don't do anything different. We don't change the laws of thermodynamics. We don't change how electricity works. We don't change how refrigeration works. You know, and this is going to be probably the fifth time I'm saying this on this podcast. The only thing we do differently than any other manufacturer is the air coming out of our air handlers is fluffier. And that's all. That's it. And that's a trade secret that we can't.
We have a
can't
fluff
share that.
meter too.
Yeah.
If y'all need to start to question.
Keep
that.
it right
You
next to
mix
the
that
O-scope.
air in with your waffles, and
There you go.
The thing that I would say is complicated systems don't need complicated problems. And that's where we tend to see that. We tend to think like, oh my gosh, what's the worst thing that could happen? And most of the time it's just not the case. I mean, this has been several years, but I remember talking to a technician on the phone, and they were quite indignant over the unit wasn't running. They kept telling it to run, they kept telling it to run, kept telling it to run. And my question then was like, okay, well, at your indoor units, what's your voltage? And the guy was like, oh, it's good. Okay, well, I'm not looking for an opinion. I'm looking for an actual numeric value, as in what was on your meter when you actually tested the voltage. And then it gets quiet, and he's like, well, the indoor units are powered up because I'm on maintenance tool. I'm like, well, coincidentally, that's not what that means. It means you have 28 to 30 volts DC on your INNET.
Yeah.
Come to find out, he sat there for 6 hours, and the units weren't turned on. The breakers were off to the indoor units.
Oh, man.
And so that's one of those things you need to get off the pickle bucket and go start to look around, and that's something I like to drive home. It's like, maintenance tool is great, but, there are times when you need to take that maintenance tool data and use that data in order to determine, like, okay, do I need to actually put a set of gauges on the BV1 and BV2? What is my pressure drop, entering? I've got a 63 LS, my low pressure transducer may be 30. Okay, what's it entering the outdoor unit? I mean, if you've got a 80 PSID, then that could be an issue depending on what system you're working on. And I would segue that into that's the other thing I try to drive home is like, what are you actually working on? Because if you call me up and say, hey, we've got these error codes, my question is like, okay, what kind of system is it and what are you trying to do with it? Because, if you tell me you've got, 1202 on a G-Gen, I'm going to say, okay, well, that means something to me. If you tell me you have it on a JGen and it's 10 below zero, it's like, that's just the cost of doing business, man. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so that's just, that people get so hawkish on things that they've experienced in the past, not realizing like you're on something completely different. You need to familiarize yourself with that system.
Yeah, but at the same time, eating the elephant one bite at a time, right? Is hopefully the guys working on this understand the refrigeration cycle. And for me, when I first started, again, we've mentioned this before too, but I'd have maintenance tool open, I'd have the refrigerant diagram, the electrical diagram on a screen so I could see it because I need to picture the state of the refrigerant. But instead of looking at the whole system all at once, I'm going to look at one little section. Let me start with the outdoor, then let me just go to one indoor, then the next indoor, then if there's a branch box, I'll go to the branch box, and just kind of break it down in small bites. So because if you try to look at the whole elephant, it's a lot.
It's daunting.
Yeah, something else is that to try to get a better, more holistic view of the system's operation, oftentimes I'll pull the hours and starts. A lot of people don't realize that you can go into maintenance tool, you can say, okay, how many starts and how many hours are on this module?
Yep.
And providing no one's ever cleared that data, if I pull up a system and it's got 14 starts and 27,000 hours, it tells me that most likely the duty cycle of this unit is just flat out. This unit hasn't turned off in 6 years.
That's true.
Or if I see the opposite of that, if I see 10,000 starts in 50 hours, it's like, okay, well, it's either so oversized that they're not using it, or it's just cycling on errors.
Right.
And so that gives me a more of a picture as to what they're doing. And so that's one of the things I try to drive home when you are doing service repair, if you are changing a compressor, if you are doing things, take note of that.
Yeah,
take note.
It's actually a great point.
Like what are the hours on it? Did you get 100 out of it? Did you get a 10,000? I had a guy. This is speaking of that. I had someone calling me on one of our old HGen water source units, and it's they lost the compressor on it, and they were just racking their brain, and finally I was like, well, just do me a favor and pull the hours on it. It had 110,000 hours on it. And I'm like, man, let it go. Yeah. Walk away, man. Put it on your mantle. And tell your buddies about it. You know what I mean? It's just like there's nothing wrong with it. It just it did its job. Okay. Yeah. Change it and go on. So
So there are some cool things that you can do with maintenance. So I'm curious about on your side if it's something you take advantage of. They have the option for threshold comparisons where you can get the boxes to light up, a certain color when we cross a threshold. So that's one of them. And then the adding operation data where we can add our own formulas for looking at values. Are there any that you have created yourself that are useful to you, or threshold comparisons that you use that really kind of raise a red flag?
I have a favorite, but I'll let Sean.
I don't want to use that though. I think you should go.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, we both use this, but one of the issues another thing I take and try to keep people from going down the mistake of looking at, we always get questions of, what's the target? What's the target?
Right.
What's this thing? It's like, okay, well, that's a slippery slope. Targets are, it's okay to know that, but don't get so hung up on it that it's going to stymie your progress.
Sure.
And so with that, people get hung up on head pressure. Well, head pressure is supposed to be this and this. It's like, okay, well, it's very conditional. So what I like to do is I like to convert my absolute pressures to compression ratio. What I'll do is and Sean is one that steered me down this road, but you convert your pressures to absolute, 14, if it's a PSIG, you add 14.7 to get PSIA, right? And then you divide your head pressure by your suction pressure, and then it gives you your compression ratio. Okay. So I'm more interested in the compression ratio than I am about the absolute pressures.
Sure.
Because for instance, years ago we had systems that were hyperheat units that were, we were seeing like there was an issue with the injection circuit, and we were seeing compression ratios of like 8.5 to 1. And so versus, comparatively speaking to other units, we're seeing, 4 to 5, 6 to 1. So by looking at the compression ratio, it's more telling to me than an absolute pressure. Someone says, hey, my head pressure is 430, and my suction pressure is this. I can sit there and do the math in my head, but I'm more worried, okay, what's my lift? Because that's what you're paying for, right?
Yeah.
You're paying for the lift. That's the work that's being done, the positive displacement aspect of the compressor. So that's probably one that I spend a lot more time with.
Now, is that a calculation you make on your own, or do you actually have it as a box and maintenance tool.
No, it's not a maintenance tool. It's a calculation you would do through that calculation
Gotcha.
function.
Okay.
So but it's invaluable.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was in my head brainstorming like, is there a way I could get that formula into the
The
maintenance
key
tool?
is converting it to absolute, though.
Right.
Because if you don't, then it will throw you off.
Sure.
And that was a mistake I originally made, and Sean was like, corrected me. So
Cool.
So it takes a village.
That was one time.
Yeah.
Just
Only
wanna
one
point
time
that
you
out.
corrected him.
One time.
And that's what I remember.
Yeah, Sean was
Yeah.
pumping
Exactly.
his Sean was pumping his fist. He's like, I got one.
September 12th, 2017. Yeah.
That's what he put on his mantle.
3:15 p.m.
Exactly.
There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
So that's one of my favorites. But if
I
that's what
thought, I thought you were going to go with compression ratio, and I think that's very helpful too. But I know that you can elaborate on that better than I can, and it's very helpful for anybody to do that. But one of the things that's nice about that calculator is if you want to graph something that doesn't initially show up on the spreadsheet, because it's got the defaults where you show up the spreadsheet, and if you hit those boxes on the left, the actual label, they'll highlight green, and then you can hit the graph. But if there's certain basic things that don't show up, for example, frequency, I'm not sure if amperage shows up, but you can build those in that calculator.
Sure.
And then once you set those and save them in the calculator, then they show up now in the spreadsheet.
Okay.
And then you can start graphing and plotting. So if you're more visual and you like to see your X and your Y, time over value, then that is extremely helpful.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that. They just think they just can't graph that point.
Right.
But the calculator is helpful in that sense as well. Plus, if you're looking for a needle in a haystack and you've got a swath of data that's several days long, then you don't have time to sit there and
Minute by minute,
and you're looking for a value to change. So it's like, what frequency are we having weird amperage draws at certain frequencies? Are we having any weird head pressure events? So you can, as Brandon likes to use the word, juxtapose those values together on the same graph. And on those graphs, you have little boxes on the right to where you can set your minimum and maximum. So sometimes if you plot certain values like temperature and PSI, it's going to automatically set itself to the PSI. So then your temperature looks really small, and you're not getting that y-axis, that amplitude.
Sure,
It just looks really tiny. So you can adjust those values and click the box for auto and not auto, and kind of zero in. It takes a little bit of a learning curve, but if you're really willing to dig deep and you want to find that needle in the haystack, that's extremely helpful to know that.
Yeah, and I've played around with it a little bit, but at a training center, it's we're a controlled environment. Equipment's been working fine for a long time, so it's tough to see.
Can you tell me what that looks like? Because nobody's like, hey, you guys check this out. Like, this thing is working great. Can you just come over here? And
Yeah, not only that, but I mean, the thing very rarely runs in normal operation. The times that the compressor's running, it's in a test run about 85% of the time. So that's a whole different, animal, because we do kind of see more fixed numbers in a test run than we will see during normal operation and mixed modes where things are, variable and targets change when we go into those mixed modes. So,
and that's what Brandon was touching on, I think, is when people ask for targets. I get afraid of that as well, because if it falls outside, people ask me that. I'm like, well, what day is it? What mode's it in?
Yeah. What's the temperature? How long's it been running?
Right. And oftentimes I get a complaint of, I'm not reaching target TC, which is, typically in standard heating performance, you're going to be at 120 target in heating. Well, I'm not reaching that. Well, how much airflow do you got going through your air handlers?
Right. When was the last cleaning?
Yeah, when was the last cleaning? Are the coils dirty? Are you bringing in straight outside air at 32 degrees into the back of that coil? Did you set your static pressure properly? Is there no ductwork attached and you're at the highest static pressure and you're now moving 3 or 4 times the CFM, which is going to reduce that head pressure, where everything's working fine, everything's fine in the system mechanically. It's just about air. Don't forget airflow. Just because your numbers don't look right in maintenance tool doesn't mean there's a mechanical or refrigeration problem.
Yeah.
This is still HVAC, airflow.
And when you give a technician a target or a rule of thumb, I think that can be dangerous. Speaking for myself personally, if somebody ever gave me that, then I'm like, wait a minute, it's out of range, it's out of the parameters. Well, something's wrong.
Yeah, they'll live and die by it.
Yeah, they live, you can't do that. You have to look at so many things. Yeah, under perfect conditions, this is the target. This is the rule of thumb. But are the conditions perfect? That's what you got to prove first.
Yeah.
Targets are variable, like the system.
Yes.
Well, that's
exactly.
so. It's funny you mentioned. I was just going to say that, which is when I have students in class, what I will tell them all the time is everything in that system is variable. You have a variable speed compressor. You have a metering device that has 3,000 pulses on it, and you have an inverter fan. So airflow can change, compressor frequency can change, and your metering is going to drastically change based on what it's seeing. And there's so much going on behind the scenes to try to reach target that you can't really get too caught up on, it's supposed to be at this many pulses or the compressor's supposed to be at this frequency. Like the thing's doing what it can, and it's doing everything it can to maintain certain, level of comfort for the end user. So
well said.
don't get too caught up on things.
When somebody, like pricing, we don't do any pricing in any of our training classes. Well, what does this cost? I go, no, somewhere between $1 and $1 million. I'm pretty sure it falls in that range per system. $1 million. I got a quick story for you. Bryn, cue the story music. All right? But you guys remember Joe Opie?
Oh, yeah.
I love the guy. The guy was wicked smart. Miss him. I miss it. Yeah, legend.
We call him Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Oh, yeah. He was like, would you agree he was like wicked smart?
Oh, yeah.
It was
I
like
still talk to him regularly.
one of the tell him I said hi, but he's one of the smartest guys I've ever met, and me and I forget who else. I want to say it was Austin Bloom and I forget who else. We're down in Swanee, the old building, and we're looking at one printout of 1 minute of screenshot of maintenance tool data. Right? And we're looking at it, and there was 3 of us. We're trying to figure out, it could be this, it could be that. And just to make it clear, this was something we just got emailed to us, and we printed that 1 minute out. So it's like nobody else in the building saw this at this point. Joe Opie comes walking in, and we got this piece of paper. They were looking at that 1 minute. And he goes, hey, we looked at it, and 3 seconds later, he says, yeah, chuck valve's leaking. It's like, what? How do you know this? Like it's Kreskin or something. I don't know.
Ain't got no gas in it. I've been wanting to do that at a site visit for so long.
We could go. I've talked about this ad nauseum, but one thing that something else I like to do, especially for comparative reasons, I'll convert like raw data to percentages. So a good example would be converting like an LEV pulse range, converting that to a percentage. Because, when you start looking at like something that's 41 to 3,000 and this is 0 to 480 and this is... you can do the same thing with compressor speeds because, people hear compressor frequency and, of course, most people just naturally are going to assume it's electrical frequency. But that's a RPS. That's rotations per second. So
Okay.
And so, a lot of times, depending on what compressor you're working on, it could be 178, it could be 105, it could be whatever. So those are types of values that if you don't know that, when you're looking at, even myself that looks at this stuff all the time, I'll convert those values to percentages to where I know, hey, if my compressor's at 100% and my LEV's at 100%, then I'm not comparing something that's 41 to 3,000 versus something that's 0 to 178. So it's just, those are some of the things, too, that when the brilliant minds behind Kinza come to us, and those are the kind of things that we're trying to get. Those tricks that we've been doing for years. We're trying to get those types of things built into Kinza as well. And so,
nice.
Those folks are coming to us for those types of things as well. So it's been flattering in that sense, but it's nice that they're trying to make a.
But that's a great idea because now that in my mind that makes more sense and it tells me how much work the system's doing versus it's at 700 pulses. Okay.
Well, here's a good example, like like just say PEFY P18, right? So let's just say like its LEV, say its maximum position in cooling is 400 pulses. Well, then you go to like a PEFY like P30, and you can like, okay, well, why is this one tapping out at 250 pulses and this P18's tapping out at 450 pulses? What's wrong? Why won't this one open up? Why won't it open up? It's like, well, it is opening up. It's just it uses a valve that's twice the size.
Right.
So when they go from a P24 to a P27 or whatever, that LEV body changes. So
Right.
now the overall aperture, the body's valve size is bigger. So naturally, you're going to have a smaller aperture for that given body size. So when you're comparing all of those, it's hard, right? And so if I know this is 400 pulses or 450 or 250, then if I can convert that to a percentage, then I know 100% is 100%.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
right.
It's wide open. It's
On a
wide
percentage
open.
of openness.
Yeah, and so and also it just cleans up a lot of the data analytics.
Yeah.
when you're comparing it that way.
Okay, I do have one final question for you. So, because this sticks in my craw every night, can't get any sleep thinking about it. And I'm not even joking. This thing, I'm
that's
so
a
confused,
lot of pressure.
and I've been hoping that you guys could help me with
Oh
this.
gosh.
Indoor units, you get one column that says your superheat and your subcooling. In cooling, makes total sense. TH2 is right after my metering device, so we're at saturation. Then we're comparing against our temperature exiting. That's our superheat. Easy peasy.
The delta, it's just a temperature delta. It's
Essentially.
assuming you don't have any pressure drop.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, we go over to subcooling. Do you happen to know how we're calculating that subcooling?
Is it R2 or Y series?
We'll go with R2.
Okay, it's looking at PS3 in the branch box.
Okay.
So it's looking at your saturated temperature of PS3 in the branch box. So
And-
that's essentially what your liquid feed is from your
Right.
branch box. So it's
Yeah.
looking at that.
And that would be compared to TH2?
Yes.
Okay.
PT3.
So I sat in front of a maintenance tool. I was doing all kinds of formulas. I did at one point think that because I'm like, well, in theory, my subcooled liquid coming back is going to be picked up by PS3
Are you
or
using
PT3.
pi to the 8th decimal when you do it?
Here we go.
You got to go to at least to the 8th.
No, I'm trying to
Yeah, okay.
sneak into the logic that exists inside maintenance tool.
3.14159 is the one I
You want the red pill?
Yeah,
Man.
yeah. So that makes a lot of sense, and
But that's a good, that's something too in the branch box, and that's something that one of the things in the, and this is for next week's show, but like the website that I built, one of the things I was trying to demystify was that differential pressure control in the BC.
Yes.
To get better understanding of this because that DPHM is critical. You talked about things to look at. I mean, if you're looking at heating, the DPHM is the differential across your indoor unit heating.
Right.
So someone could say, well, this unit seems to perform when I have 120 degree gas at the indoor unit, but when here I've got 140 and nothing's happening. It's like, well, your DPHM's 20 in this screenshot and it's 60 in the other. So that differential pressure alone that's your differential pressure across your indoor units in
right.
heating.
That's a good point.
So
yeah.
that's going to dictate your mass flow rate through that unit. So
So increasing that would, in theory, slow down my flow of refrigerant.
Increasing your DPHM is going to increase your flow through your indoor unit.
Okay.
And
Gotcha.
heating. So,
Yep.
so those are things. But you're also on that secondary side. So, so you do have, you just have inherent pressure drop there as well. So it's just, it's all just a cost of doing business. You have to now figure out like, okay, what mode am I in? And that's what it's trying to do. It's trying to figure out like, okay, where do I need to be?
This is why I'm so happy we get them on.
Yes.
This is the stuff.
No,
where I'm
because
like, yes, all right,
because
something to latch on to.
he asked me, and you know what? Maybe 7 years ago, somebody told me, and I just couldn't remember what it was. But okay, so let's back up on a Y series. What is it looking at then?
It's looking at your 63HS1.
Okay.
Yeah, and the same thing. But now I think on the the older hyperheat. Let me think of that. I can speaking out of turn on that.
Yeah. My understanding with the Y series would just be TC.
Yeah, TC.
Yeah, TC,
That's what
which
he
is your
meant,
which
the
your 60.
saturation.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
yeah,
your
yeah.
saturation pressure of your.
And then it's just comparing to TH2 temp, which is
now
exiting.
the old J-Gen hyperheats. They had the 63HS2 in that one, and I
That's
thought
right.
And then they would compare to that.
Wow,
So,
okay.
So that was that's kind of dating myself. On that. But again, coming back full circle, that's why it's important to know what system you're connected to.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
because the old J-Gens would, there was. A good example is if you had a J-Gen 120 twinned with a 96, and people would say, okay, well, why it's in full cooling? Why is my 120 not using its full hex and my 96 is? It's like, well, actually, they're both using their full hex. It's just the 120 has a normally open valve, and the 96 has a normally closed valve. And you got to go to page 478 in the service manual
To figure
in
that
size
out.
8 font, to figure
hate
that out.
when that
Like, how do you not know that?
Oh, man, that's great.
Yeah, so.
So, Brandon, I want to go back to this. You mentioned a website, and I've been on there. I think it's an amazing thing. Can you give out that website
Sure.
and tell us what's on that website real briefly?
Okay, yeah. The website again. This was a proof of concept. So so if you've used the internet before, like understand that I'm not a 23-year-old web developer. Okay, so I'm a 40-something-year-old guy that fixes broken air conditioners. So, but the name of the website is www.3dservicesupport.com. So the idea was 3D as in like 3 diamonds, and then service support, and 3D I think is better than 2D. So I mean I don't know supposedly, but so the idea was to take all of our mechanical drawings, electrical and refrigeration drawings, and then put them in an interactive format. So now you can go to this site and you can look at your mechanical drawings, and now it's going to show color-coded refrigerant status in what particular mode. You'll have actually circuit boards on there. And so the idea behind this was to take all of the information you didn't know to be able to troubleshoot a refrigerant system. So valve position. Is it normally open and is it normally closed? What's this LED doing in this particular mode? What's the state of refrigerant in this particular mode? So nowhere do we have any other area to where it shows that, to where you can figure all that out if you have time and you want to look at, the engineering data, and you want to look at the refrigerant schematics, and you look at all that stuff, you can figure it out. But the idea behind it was that. And so I'm hoping that we can get some buy-in, and maybe they can start building those types of things moving forward. But so 3dservicesupport.com, and it's not complete again because it's just me. It's just this is a splinter cell kind of grassroots deal that I did over a couple years, and right now it's only in generation equipment.
Yeah, I've gone through it, and it is really helpful. It gives you a better understanding of what should be happening. And
currently we don't have the refrigerant flows for the XXLs and the hyperheats,
right?
But the XXLs in there, and it's so helpful. What Brandon's too humble to say this, but like the theory behind creating that and what it does and how quick it is to consolidate the important stuff for a service guy into that one little, it's just extremely
I'll tell you
helpful.
the system that really I think that really sells it is it's not an R2. I do have the BC diagrams in there as well, so you can go to the BC and look to see how that operates under particular modes. But the extended performance, the EP, the Y Series EP 72 to 144. I don't know if anybody's ever seen this. I mean, if you all have looked at the refrigerant diagram of that in the service manual, but it's a convoluted mess. Because they added these valves, I call them powered check valves. I don't know the real name for them, but they're SV14 and SV15. So effectively what they do is they allow flow for one direction powered, and they allow flow for another direction unpowered.
Sure.
And where they're being used is they're essentially just converting the outdoor coil from a parallel configuration to a series configuration to get better performance out of it. Well, if you look at the way it's described in the service manual and how it shows you it works, there's nobody I know that could.
It's hard to make sense of it.
Yeah,
And
it really
so
is.
we have the diagrams in our in our class, and sometimes trying to show what's going on with those.
Yeah, so if you look at the manual, you can see, like, okay, under this mode, SV14 is energized, SV15 is energized, and even we've had some TSAs. Austin Bloom reached out and said that was invaluable having to, because they actually had one of those valves go bad, and the unit was going bananas, and so I was a kind of a little feather in my hat on that.
That's called the proof of concept.
Yeah, no, it's a great website, and kudos to you for putting that together. I mean, it's just.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I don't know how you have the time. You must never sleep.
I don't even go into how much time I have into that because I built it all using this isn't a plug for Adobe, but I just I drew everything and then I compiled it and then I basically converted it all to HTML, and that's the reason it flows that way. It flows like an e-publication because that was the extent of my knowledge base. So.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Awesome.
It's very intuitive still.
Okay, well, good.
Yeah.
Good.
You know what it's great for is a technician. Somebody who doesn't need fluff, doesn't need
and that was the
graphics
target
necessarily.
demographic, because when
It's
they were
utilitarian.
talking about, that's exactly right. I'm a proletarian, and that's exactly who it's for. So the other thing on there too, I did some dip switch configuration stuff on there, like for the LED display on the outdoor unit. There's a You can go in there and you can hit whatever value you want to see, and it gives you your LED display.
Yep.
So exactly what you want to see on the LED. So there's some, and that's something too. I don't know if we're probably out of time, but maintenance tool is great, but there are some times like there's information in that outdoor unit display that is not reflected through maintenance tool.
Yep.
Target TC.
Yes,
Target
I talk about that
TE.
all the time.
Yeah, that's a dip
TC
switch.
target.
Yeah,
that's only a dip switch.
Yeah, that's a dip switch on the outdoor unit. Say, hey, what's this thing trying to do?
Yeah.
You know, and that's another thing that kind of gets you into, combining all of these tools we have at our disposal.
Yeah.
So.
But Brandon, once again, you're right. We are out of time, and I got to just be honest with you. The only reason we're out of time is because our CEO, Mark Kuntz, is going to be here any minute now, and we got to have him on next. And I'm sorry, but he trumps you guys.
Yeah,
So,
I've heard that.
I can live with that.
Yeah. You tell him to come back in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
No, not him.
He's actually a nice guy.
But-
He probably would. So yeah.
He may even want that opportunity.
Yeah.
He may be.
We may need an episode 2.
Yeah.
You know, even if we can get you guys to remote in
Yeah.
from
it's,
from home,
yeah. I mean,
that would be incredibly helpful.
I'm good at talking about things most people don't care about.
No, we will definitely have you guys
Exactly.
on again.
Yeah. What we do.
I have a feeling we're going to get a bunch of emails and texts about your website and about what you guys. I think we're going to get a lot of questions. What about this? What about that?
Yeah. Well, like I said, in closing, I'll say that just don't beat me up too much on the website. It was an attempt to get buy-in from marketing and other people to say, hey,
Look what we can do.
Look what we
Yeah.
can do, and then it's
Okay. By the next time we talk, I want you to have that in an app.
Well, interestingly, it's not that hard to convert to a web mobile base. I
Wow.
could do that. It's just.
Don't say that out
No,
loud.
no.
Well, I
We're
think
going
it
to
needs
strike
be
that.
vetted. I think
Strike
personally,
that.
I think
That's
it's
when the
right
emails are going to continue to flood
Yeah,
in.
no. You said there'd be an app. I don't see it.
Yeah. Let's. If I can monetize it, then maybe I can.
Yeah, there you go.
One thing real quick I just wanted to say about maintenance tool is that understand that it's pulling these data points at different times throughout the minute. So it can pull amperage and frequency at different points.
Yes.
And so if you're just looking at one frame and you're not Joe Opie, you may get confused because you're going to see 0 amps and 30 frequency. Right? How's that happening?
Right.
Or when you go back now and test Brandon's information for subcool and
May
start
not
doing this,
perfectly match
yeah,
up.
because it could have pulled your temperature at the BC and your temperature at TH2 at different times during those. So they won't
Sure.
always. So the
That's
thing
actually,
to keep in
I think,
mind
what happens.
with maintenance tool, even with the seasoned people, is that look, you want stable operation before you make a judgment.
Yeah.
And get off that pickle bucket, like Brandon said.
Yeah.
Use your gauges.
I like that.
You have them for a reason.
Yeah.
And temperature probes.
Awesome.
Guys,
Thank you.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
this has been a
This
lot
was
of
awesome.
fun. Hopefully, it's
Thank you guys for the
fruitful
opportunity.
and,
Hey, Sean, real quick on your griddle. Have you used it to make chicken parm?
Not yet.
Because-
that scares me.
No, I did it. I got my chicken. You put the flour, the egg, and the breadcrumbs, which you can get gluten-free breadcrumbs.
Yes,
I'm sure they're
you can do it,
available.
yep.
Probably tastes like cardboard, but and then
Easy.
you get everything nice and hot, and you of course you're beating down the chicken, you're flattening it, but you put it on there because I used to be because my kids love chicken parm, and my son's 20, and he's taller than me, and he eats twice as much as I do. He actually came home one time. I made dinner, and he had a meatball sub with him. I go, Tom, I told you I'm making dinner. You have a meatball sub? He goes, yeah, that's not dinner. I'll still eat your dinner, but when I'm cooking.
Pre-gaming.
So anyway, you use a frying pan. You're trying to fry all this up because I don't have a deep fryer like the restaurants do, but that griddle, you can put like 6 chickens on there and fry them all up at once. It's
Really?
Yeah.
I'm still exploring it. It's amazing.
I love it.
I love it too.
I love it, too.
The barbecue's now in the corner. I mean, there's still
Yeah.
use for it, but
I haven't used my grill in a long time. So
I'm intrigued.
anyway, thanks guys for joining us. Thank you
If you have
again.
any gluten-free waffle questions too, come in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
3dservicesupport.com
Yeah,
for
might
waffle
need to
recipes.
make our own gluten-free podcast.
Let me just think about if I ever have. Listen, Brandon, I make you this promise. If I ever have a gluten-free food question, you're the first person I go and try.
Very good. Thank you very much.